we're back.
Hello, everybody.
So today is episode 8,
Yep.
and we're going to continue our story about the kids, this time Sammy. But I did want to say thank you to everyone who's been tuning in and listening. I just saw the other day we're over 100 downloads on our podcast, like from all the episodes collectively. So I think it's pretty cool. I know
Yeah.
it's like it doesn't sound like much when you hear it, like, 'cause everybody wants to be an influencer, everyone wants to be a YouTube star and have a podcast that's crazy famous and all. But so people talk about these big numbers,
Yeah. Like
100,000 and
thousands.
millions, and but
Yeah.
it's like, hey, right now we got 113 downloads. I think it's pretty cool because I wasn't expecting much out of this.
Yeah.
So it's like, thank you for everyone who's been listening, and it's cool that we're able to share our life story, and hopefully it's shining some light and helping people in ways, and just showing that how God moves and how God does things, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So thank you to everyone that's been tuning in.
Yes, thank you, everybody. We really do appreciate it.
So now let's get into it. Um, last week was a little side episode, not side, just out of the order of the stories that we're saying. But a little side note about that episode. So for those of you that didn't listen to that one, go back and check it out because it's crazy and it's awesome because it's about what God's been doing in my life personally lately. But it's crazy because we went over to a friend's house yesterday, and I'm telling them, what God's been doing, because, we're not a family that really supports, just Disney and stuff like that. And they were telling us that too, right? They're like, yeah, we don't do all that and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, we don't either. And I was like, but the Lord will use whatever, like I was like, God will use things that are not godly in a way, like that they're not yeah, anyway. So I was like, yeah, the last couple of weeks God has been using stuff like that, and he used a Disney movie for me for like breakthrough in my life. And then my friend, the husband, he goes, hey, me too. He goes, which one? The Lion King? And I was like, oh my gosh. So what happened was what God was doing with me that I shared in that last episode,
Hmm.
God also did for my friend around the same time. Like 2, 3 weeks ago, I'm like, dude, this is insane how God came to both of us around the same time and used the same movie to tell us the same thing about our identity, about
Yeah.
our like being his son. And like, dude, it was crazy. It's still blowing me away
Yeah.
how God did this. Like, what are the chances? Like, it blew me away.
Yeah. And yours is like story about it was like so similar too, and that was just like amazing. It's just like obviously God can do what he wants to do in his timing and everything. It's just hilarious how he did it to both of you guys the exact same way and around the same time too.
Yeah.
It's just so cool.
I'm like, what the heck, man? That was crazy. But anyway, I just want to share that because I thought that was so cool and crazy. And it just shows how God is just sovereign, and just, I feel like sometimes God does things just to show off,
Yeah.
just to be like, you see, I told you it's me. You know what I mean? Because there's times where, like, not that I was going to start doubting everything that happened, but there are times that sometimes, I feel like I'm saying that kind of weird. There will be some times where God will do something or he'll say something, and then we're kind of like, was that really God? You know? We'll be like, maybe that was just me because I wanted that,
Mm.
you know? But then God will make it like insanely clear that he's like, nope, I told you it was me.
Do
You
you
know what I
believe that it
mean?
was me now?
And like, yeah, I feel like sometimes he just like does things just to show off. Like, I was telling that story too, where, when we first came to the Lord, and I was reading the Bible and everything, and I was reading through the New Testament, and um I was reading it every day, and but like in the evening, like after work, and during the day, I would have a question and be like, man, what about this? What about this thing? Or what about that thing? And then I would come home, and then that question would be answered with what I was reading. And I was reading it in order. So it wasn't just like I was just like flipping it open and be like, okay, God, what do you want to tell me? And then just flip it open, leave it up to chance, and then God would pick it. It wasn't like that. I was just reading through in order.
Yeah.
And it would still happen that way. Like I was thinking, what are the chances that all the questions that I'm having are being answered in like while I'm reading the Bible in consecutive order, you know? And I was already pretty blown away about it because it was happening like day after day. Like it was multiple days back to back. And I was like, man, like God is really speaking to me and he's really like showing me these things. Like the word, like, how people say, the Bible is coming alive. Like I was feeling that,
Yeah.
and then, but the one that just took like it just like took the cake. It was, I was, I was, I had this one song in my head, and the chorus is, give us clean hands, give us pure hearts, let us not turn our hearts to another, or something like that. But that was just stuck in my head all day. And then I come home and I start reading, and sure enough, talks about, having clean hands and a pure heart. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't even know that that was a scripture. Like, when I was listening to that song, I didn't know it was a scripture. I just thought this guy was just asking God to give us clean hands and a pure heart. I
Yeah.
just thought he was being poetic. Like, I thought he wrote that. And then when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, at that point, I was like, God is just showing off at this point. Like, he didn't have to keep going, and he just is, you know? But yeah, so that's why I wanted to share that one because it was just so cool how God does this,
Hmm.
you know. But so if you haven't heard the previous episode, go check it out because um, the Lord literally like reveals things in real time on that episode, and I wasn't expecting that, Where like at one point in the episode, I'm asking like, I don't know how God's gonna do this, and then later on, it's like, yep, He did it, He's doing it. But yeah, so today we're back to the babies.
At the babies.
So we're gonna talk about Sammy's, like, how how he came to be, and like the things that happened around the pregnancy, the C-section, delivery, surgery, all that. Um, we already talked about how the Lord asked us for him, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, when it was like talking about the names and all that.
Yeah.
So we're not going to get into too much detail about that one because we already talked about that. But pretty much, the Lord had put in my heart, from that podcast episode that I was watching, that, other religions, they multiply and they have kids for their false gods, right? But the Lord gave us the commandment of, you know, be fruitful and multiply. And we have the real God, and we don't do that. We're more afraid of, oh, how are we going to do things financially? Is it smart to do this? Is it, all these things? We have this Americanized mentality
Yeah.
of calculating and figuring it out, and is it worth it, is it gonna, all these things. And I'm not saying this to tell anybody, to encourage you guys to be stupid and just have a bunch of kids without any wisdom. I'm not saying that. But there is, like, I did feel that conviction of, like, you know as Americans, we're more concerned with our comfort and our
Hmm.
success, and like kids are like a burden, they're like an afterthought, you know
Yeah.
and other religions, they grow because they multiply, whereas Christianity, at least out in the West, I don't know about other countries because I don't go over there and I don't know anything about them, so I'm not going to act like I know. But at least over here, we usually grow because of like evangelism and stuff like that, which is good. I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all, but I'm saying, you know, we should be growing in more than just one way. But with that conviction from that day, I was like, I'm not just gonna go home and tell my wife, "Hey, let's have kids for the Lord. We gotta get pregnant now." I was like, "No, I'm not gonna do that. That sounds very manipulative and weird, and nah." So, and I already knew she didn't want any more kids. She was very, very adamant about that. So, I kept it to myself. I didn't say anything at all. I came home from work that day, talking to her. I was like, "Hey, how's it going? Whatever, whatever."
Yeah, and I'm in the kitchen making dinner too.
Yeah, so we're standing in the kitchen, and then all of a sudden, she goes, "Babe, I think we need to have another kid." Or I forgot how you said it. We're like, "I think God wants us to have another kid,"
I think
something
I
like
said,
that.
I think God wants us to have another kid,
Yeah.
if I'm not
So
mistaken.
then I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, I was blown away because I'm like, "What the heck?" Like God was just telling me this, and I didn't say anything. And then I was like, "Well, I mean, maybe we should just like pray about it and make sure that it's a good idea." Or I was kind of freaked out a little bit. And she goes, "Okay, we could do that." And then I remember I also felt this like panic of like I gotta pray about it right now, because you were like, because you said you're all
You can pray about it, but God's been telling me for 2 weeks.
yeah. Because at first you were like, okay, yeah, we can do that, and then like I could see that like maybe you were trying to like maybe go along with what I said, but then you're like convinced. You're like, I mean, you can pray if you want, but God's already been telling me. I'm like, oh my gosh.
You're
so
like,
that
oh, dude.
so in that moment I felt like, what am I supposed to go to the room and pray now?
Go to your quiet place, babe. Go, go, go.
So then I was like, all right, well, you know what? Let's just like read the Bible or something, because at the time, that was kind of like what we were doing, like I would come home, kind of hang out a little bit, and then we'd like read a chapter or something. So that was like, so I was just kind of like, all right, well, let's just, keep going and see what happens. So we did, and then we're reading these passages about, God's promises are yes and amen
Yeah.
and all of this, and I'm like, what is going on right now?
Every single time you look like you read something, you immediately looked up at me, and I just looked up at you, and I was just like, what?
Yeah, I was like, what the heck?
Confirmation, confirmation.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, what is going on? So you can tell your backstory of those 2 weeks leading up to that.
That was like, it was pretty much like, it was just only happening at night. It wasn't like, he was talking to me and telling me these things like during the day and stuff. It was just my dreams I kept having, you know? And it was literally every single night for 2 weeks. And I was just so nervous to like bring it up because I was like, because like you said, you knew how I felt about it and how I was so like, yeah, I'm done having kids. I'm done having kids because I'm just like, how is this actually happening? I was also like in a state of like shock. Like, am I really wanting this again? Can I do this again? Because I'm a stay at home mom. I homeschool all of our kids, you know? And so I'm just like, can I add a third kid to this? Can I handle this? And so it really kind of freaked me out in the beginning, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I was just like, no, maybe these are just like weird dreams I'm having, like maybe they're not like real.
Yeah.
But nope, kept happening. And then it's like, I was just, I don't know, shocked, nervous to bring it up that one night because I just had this like feeling I needed to tell you.
I was gonna say, what made you bring it up?
Because I just had this feeling in my heart that I was like, it's time to tell you because it was so long. It was like about like, it wasn't exactly the same dream every single night, but it was just like, it was always similar, us holding another child and
Another boy.
yeah, like another little boy. And it was like, every single time it was like either in the hospital, like us holding him for the first time, like a newborn thing,
Mm-hmm.
and us walking around our house or doing something and there was 3 kids with us.
Mm.
It was always like one of those type of things. And so like it was just like I said, it was just about 2 weeks. And I was just like, nah, man, this can't happen. And then finally, just like one morning, I woke up from it and I just had this feeling in my heart that I had to tell you. I was so nervous that whole day. Like when you were gone at work, I was just like, I can't. I'm like, I don't know what he's going to say. I don't know how he's going to react. Not because like I knew you were going to be upset or something. It's just,
Yeah,
for
it's just a
so
big
long,
decision. Yeah.
we were like, especially me, we're like, nope, we're done. Nope, we're done. You know?
Yeah.
And,
Hi,
hi,
Sam.
Sammy.
Whoa, chill out.
Careful.
You're okay. You're okay.
You're okay, baby.
Yeah.
You want me to keep going?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, it was just like I said, it was it just that morning I just woke up and I just had this feeling, like I need to tell you, I need to tell him. And of course I was still nervous to tell him. After that, I just felt like so much like relief.
Yeah.
And I was like nervous, but I was also like excited because I was just like, you know, I I felt excitement because like I knew I was being obedient to God, you know,
Yeah.
because obviously he's the one who gave me all these dreams,
Yeah.
and it was just like a level of like excitement, not because like because I had no idea what you were going to say, but it was just the excitement inside of me that I was like I was obedient today. I did something that he asked me to do.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to come of it, but I followed through with that obedience.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So then after that, we were kind of just like it was just so much confirmation that it kind of felt ridiculous. Cause like I know you already felt that but like what I'm saying right now about how like I don't feel like I need to ask him because he's the one that's been telling me already, you know? And then that kind of felt the same with me where I'm like, there's so much confirmation right now that it feel kind of ridiculous to ask him again.
Hmm.
It's like it just felt so like obvious. And I'm like, dang, dude, like this is crazy. So I was like, all right, well, I guess we're gonna do this. And we're like, yeah, I'm like, all right. And then, we did end up getting pregnant right away. And the whole pregnancy was just interesting,
Yeah.
there's a few key moments that I do want to talk about, um, because, like we just knew, like not to say that our other kids like weren't like this. Like obviously like the Lord gave us and he picked each of our kids, you know, and they all have a calling from the Lord on their life.
Yeah.
But this kid went through like there was more warfare around him.
Yeah. Even before he came out.
Um, right off the bat, we talked about their names, right? So we named him Samuel Azariah, you know, because the Samuel part was because I had realized that he's the first kid that since conception, all he's ever known us is like all he's ever known is parents and a family that seeks the Lord. Like he's never known us outside of that. He's never seen me smoking weed. He's never seen me drinking alcohol. He's never seen me cussing and
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And doing all these other things and living for the world. He's never seen us doing that. He's only ever seen us, glorifying God, and living in a home, like even his siblings, and you know what I mean? So it's like, wow, this kid really is being raised in the presence of the Lord. And this was the first pregnancy too, where even the pregnancy itself was in God's presence, where, you know, going to church every Sunday and Wednesday and, you know, during worship and the preachings, like he experienced all that in the womb. So I
Yeah.
was like, this kid, like he's literally being raised in the presence of the Lord. And that made me think of Samuel in the Bible. So that's why I picked that name. And it just so happened too that that name means, well, his mother in the Bible said, I have asked him of the Lord or something like that, right? Like she asked for him from God. And that's why she named him that. That's what Samuel means. But in our case, it was like backwards. Like God asked us to have him, you know? So that was pretty cool too. And then the Azariah part, like we mentioned in the other episode, is about
Oh my gosh, yeah.
just the zeal and the boldness that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had in that story when they got thrown into the fire, and then the angel of the Lord was in there. Azariah is the Hebrew name of one of the boys, and I just thought that was like such a cool thing. Like I wanted that for my kid, so that was the names that we picked, and then time is moving on. She's getting bigger and all of this. He's growing fine. And then there's two major moments in the pregnancy where I feel there was definitely warfare. One of them was, it's funny. Both times I was in the room, like, well, I don't know if I was working on music or something. That's probably what I was doing, because you came in. So that first one, you came in and you were like freaked out. You're like, babe, I don't know what you said. I don't remember, but you were talking about how like you had this crazy dream or whatever it was, and like I believe it was like a full on like vision.
Was that one first or the other?
Yeah, that one was first.
Okay.
Um, it was this full on like vision thing. It was like
Oh yeah, because I was
because
like super tired.
because it
Took a
was still
nap.
early on in the pregnancy, not like super early, but it was still probably within the first trimester. I think I'm pretty sure. Um, and pretty much she's talking about how she had this crazy vision of these like demon things, and it freaked her out, and it felt so real, and she was like freaked out, like scared. So if you want to say what happened.
Yeah. So that day you came home from work. I believe. Yeah. Yeah. You were. It was after work, and I was just like, yeah, I'm just like really tired. I'm just gonna go take like a quick like nap, And so I went in our room. I fell asleep, and I wasn't even like fully asleep for that long. Um, and it was kind of crazy because like whenever I did fall asleep, in that dream, vision, nightmare, whatever you might want to call it, because to me it felt like a nightmare. Um, there was like how many demons did I tell you? Like it was like three.
It was three.
Yeah, it was like three. It was one like came after like they all came after me, like my body physically.
Are you gonna describe them, because I think that's very important?
I was going to, but
Yeah.
I just want to say like where they attacked first.
Yeah.
One of them came and attacked in my mouth, like where, like I don't remember exactly what they did.
They were like slashing at your mouth because it had
Okay,
like,
I was gonna say it was either slashing or just like forcefully covering my mouth.
I remember you were saying that they had like long claw fingers,
Yeah,
and like they were like slashing at your mouth.
so they were doing that to that, and it was like my throat too. I feel like because I was trying to speak,
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to yell for help in the dream vision. I really do feel like it was like just a nightmare, but maybe it really was a vision. I don't know.
Whatever it is, it was real.
But it felt like that, and it was even crazier because like even though I was like asleep, it wasn't that much of a deep sleep. It was like I could still feel my body laying in our bed. So it's kind of like that in between
Mm-hmm.
phase. So, but like while all that's happening, I can actually still feel it happening in real life. Like I could feel like the scratching, the clawing. It felt so hot and warm, and it was so freaky, and like I just couldn't like speak. I couldn't speak up. I couldn't do anything. And then there was two others, and these two went directly for my womb. They went directly for Sammy. They were trying to like claw their way towards him and all this stuff, and they were trying to like just go after him, and I could just it just kept feeling like that my C-section scar area, it was just super like in pain, and it was warm and burning. It was so intense, and it's just so crazy because like it sounds like just regular like demons and stuff, but these demons, they had faces, and I recognized these faces, and I even told Miguel like after, because I was kind of like partially paralyzed for a while after I woke up because it was just like it just felt so like real, and I was just like I didn't know what to do, and I literally felt like I just couldn't move. And I feel like it was them doing that still because, like, I just, like, I was trying to still get help after I woke up and I just couldn't move. But the three faces I remember, I don't remember the names 100%, but, and this is another reason why our family, we cut out, horror movies, demonic stuff like this, because like, not because of this specific reason, but
It just
this
confirms it.
this confirms that this stuff is real. Even though they're movies and stuff, this is real. They take the faces of something we've seen, but in reality, behind those faces, there's still demons, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But the one who came after my face and my mouth, my voice and everything, it's the ones from the movie Insidious, the very, very first movie. And it's the guy, like I said, I don't remember their names, but I just remember their faces. It's the guy with the red face, and he's like,
He looks like that dude from Star Wars. Was it?
yeah, there you go, like the red face Star Wars, like that guy. And and it's so crazy because I saw his whole body for him, because that's the one that whenever I used to watch those movies, that's the one that actually stayed with me the most.
Like that
I
one.
would
That one would freak you out a
It
lot.
would freak me out really bad. Like, I would actually have nightmares even after stop watching those movies, that he was like, in the corner at midnight, or if I would wake up in the middle of the night, I would see him. It would really stick with me. So he's like the one, but like he had like that red face, red body, and then his legs were like hooves. So like, and he was hairy from his like waist down. So like that guy stood with me so bad. And so like that was the one that was doing that. And then the other two who were down by Sammy, it was the guy from Sinister, where he's a guy who's actually legitly after children. Like, he's after kids, and he like, I forget exactly how that movie goes, but he has like a weird face too.
So what's crazy is, like, we're talking about these things, right? And whether, like, this is where, like how you were saying, this is the craziness of of specifically those type of movies,
Yeah.
you know? Um, because that dude from Insidious, I mean, the whole movie is about this little boy that he can contact the dead. Well, he can astral project, basically. He can like leave his body at night, and then he goes to these other places, and this basically this demon, that red thing, it ends up taking him, right? In the movie, this other realm, they call it the Further, which is kind of a stupid name, but regardless, and it ends up being like that's where all the dead people go, and then there's demons and all. Basically, it's a spirit world, right? But they just call it that, and like they, yeah, and like that demon dude, that red faced guy, he's the one that's like, he kept the kid and he kidnapped him and all of this, and he's like trapped him in this thing, and he's this like evil tormentor. And it apparently, it like, because we were into these movies quite a bit, like we didn't finish them because like they still came out with more, and we were already following the Lord, so we just didn't keep watching the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we watched like the 1, 2, and 3. This was like before we came to the Lord. And the story goes that like this same demon used to even attack the boy's dad when he was a kid, because he used to be able to do this. And they had this one like shh. They had this one lady, I forgot her name. I mean, I forgot what you would call her, like a medium or whatever, like people who like talk to the dead and stuff like that. I forgot what they call it in the Bible. But this lady that does that stuff, and she was the one that helped him and all this. And there was this whole thing about this red-faced demon guy, I forgot his name, but he would like torment the family, and it was a generational thing. It was first the dad, then the little boy, and it was crazy things like that. So it's like, whether this demon, okay, shh.
Okay.
Whether this demon took on the form of this movie because it wanted to scare us, or whether the people making this movie were influenced by demons to basically like project whatever the case is, we know this thing is like real in that way. Not that this specific demon is like real and like whatever. Like, I don't mean it like that, but what I'm saying is like the stuff that they're saying and the things that these demons do is real. And what's crazy is how these movies are about children, right? In the first one, once they open that door, to go try to save their kid or whatever, then they open the door to everything, and then all these, things would be happening. All these demonic things would happen, and it was always after their kids because they had this other daughter too, and all this. So it's crazy that movie was about that. You're tired? Yeah. Okay. And then the Sinister one, I used to like that one a lot more. And it's crazy because, like, looking back, I used to really like scary movies and all that. And, like, it's just crazy to think about it. It's just crazy to think that I would enjoy things like that,
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, the scarier that it was, the more freaked out that I was, it was like the more that I liked it, and it's weird.
And then, dang, I don't know why I can't think of the third one.
Well, hold on, I gotta finish that one because
Oh,
that one's
okay,
really
sorry.
important because that one's specifically about kids.
Sorry.
That movie was the whole movie is about this weird demon thing, literally this demon that would like eat. I don't know if he would eat them, but he would definitely take children.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it was the story of this guy. I don't remember what he did for work. I think he was a writer, and he was gonna write a story on this one like tragic story of this family that, from what it seemed like, was like a family suicide type of thing, where they all died in their house. But turns out, so this guy,
And then there was a missing kid.
yeah,
It was like a whole family. They all died, and then there was a missing kid.
It doesn't matter. I'm not gonna recap the whole movie. I'm just saying, the dude decides to move into that house because obviously it was gonna be super cheap, and then he's like got more whatever. Like, he's just closer to the story or whatever. Well, he moves his family in there. Then his kid starts seeing things. He starts having nightmares and these night terrors and all this crazy stuff. And he starts kind of like going crazy. Eventually, he ends up finding these weird things and these apparitions. And, the movie goes along. But turns out he finds out that it was this demon all along. It was this ancient demon from I don't know where, from this different culture and blah, 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 blah. They make it all interesting or whatever. But pretty much, this thing would attach himself to one of the children, and he would like lure them in somehow. I forgot how, and basically like demonize them, I guess you would say. Like, in these, I'm trying to think of it like how we would see it now, right? To make it blatantly truth, and not make it all interesting and cool like how the movies would do stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But pretty much this kid would get like taken over by this demon, and he would use him or use the kid to then kill his family, and then he would basically take him. Again, I don't know if the kid would get eaten or consumed or what the case was, and they've made like 2 movies like that already. I don't know.
Yeah, I believe it's been 2.
But that's literally the whole story for this demon. Like, his whole thing is going after children. And it's just crazy that those, and it's not like those are the only movies that we've watched. We had watched tons of scary movies before. Like, that was a big part of what I was into back in the day. So the fact that those 2 are the ones that appeared to you, and then the third one, I don't know if you said what the third one was.
I kind of forgot what the third one was, honestly. Like, after I was thinking about it, I just remember that there was a third one, and it was like, I don't know.
But yeah, so
but those 2 for sure were like the ones that really stuck out. And then sorry, were you done?
I was just gonna say that then because we had already like known that whole backstory of these movies, and that's what came after you and Sammy. I was like, yeah, there's no way that I'm just okay with this. So like, we went back in the room, and I prayed, and
Sammy likes to make his little guest appearance.
So we went in the room, and we prayed, and it was like, it never happened again, right? But I was mad. Sometimes you got to get that way. Sometimes you got to, and it's something that the Lord is teaching me to be that way with myself too. Because it's easier for me to step up and be bold and be aggressive against the evil spirits and stuff like that, for my family. But then when it comes to me, not that I don't do that, but it's almost like I have to have the same level of care for myself, for my soul, as for them, right? But anyway, that's beside the point. I just kind of remembered that. I kind of thought about that right now.
Yeah, so like also after I finally came out of like that feeling like I couldn't move state, I immediately like just prayed and I asked God just to like give me strength. And like I don't remember if I did this, but like I'm gonna do it now.
Mhm.
um, I'm gonna rebuke that as we're talking about this. I'm gonna rebuke it in our own home right now and declare that this house is covered by the blood of Jesus. And even us just talking about this, it's not gonna bring anything back. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna declare that right now. I rebuke any and all demonic things that that have and will possibly ever try to come back anytime. We rebuke it. This house is covered by the blood of Jesus, and this family is covered by Jesus' blood as well. I just wanted to put that out there as well, you know, because we haven't talked about this kind of stuff in a while. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that really quick.
Yeah. And like, and what's crazy too, like, because as freaked out as she was, as angry as I was, it just like, if anything, after that experience, I had realized, I'm like, you know what, there's something about this kid, like when the devil does things like this, like that's just
That's
like,
one of two stories, though.
right. But that's one thing that I don't know if it's just the optimist in me, or if the Lord really allows me to see these things, to see them for what they are, right? But like when the devil does something like this, all he's doing, like he's messing up, because he's just revealing that you're being a threat to him. That there's a reason why he wants to destroy you,
Mhm.
whether it's you, your marriage, your children, whatever he's attacking. It's clear that that thing is a threat to him, and there's something that God is doing that he is so afraid of, and he
Yeah.
wants to stop it at all cost, to where he will show his like he will show himself.
Yeah.
Because I remember one time, I don't know who said it or where I heard it, but I heard this phrase that said, the greatest lie or the greatest trick the devil ever pulled on the world is convincing the world that he doesn't exist. And that, I don't know where it came from, but that makes sense. That he lives in the obscurity of this, like, maybe he's real, maybe he's not. Even atheists believe he's not real. All this stuff. Even like when I was in witchcraft and stuff, that's like a big thing. They
Mhm.
would tell you, like, or mainly when I was like in the Satanist thing, they would tell you. I mean, I'm sure there are Satanists who really do believe, and they really are like super like into the evil stuff. But for the majority of people, they're convinced first that there is no spiritual side of things, so then it's okay to identify with the devil, because the devil is more of an image of what represents what is against the norm. So they're like, well, he's not really real, he just kind of represents this and blah blah blah. So it's like, even to the people that need to be convinced to follow him, he's convincing them that he's not real, right? So when the devil does something like this, where he reveals himself, where he shows, where he actually attacks, he's like, you messed up, dude. You messed up, because I know you're there, and I know you're threatened, and this one thing is threatening you. So if anything, it just gives me more like excitement that God is doing something, right? This is like, it just gives me more reason to fight back, to protect, to be on guard, right? The Bible says to be vigilant at all times, like, it just gives me more fuel, more energy, more zeal to be that way, right? It's like, you just messed up, dude, because you're attacking, and now I know this is threatening you. Now I know we're threatening you. Now I know that you're threatened, that you're afraid, that there's something that you don't like, and that God is doing something amazing.
Mhm.
That's the way that we need to be looking at these things, that when the devil comes and attacks, whether if he had attacked our kids or our marriage or whatever it is, like, especially when it's like this type of like obvious thing, it's like, dude, you just messed up. Like, not only am I going to rebuke it, I'm going to cast you out of this place, I'm going to put you in your place. Like, now I'm just going to be more on guard, and I'm excited, and I'm going to keep going after the Lord, because this thing that you're so afraid of, now I know this is a big threat to you.
Yeah.
You know? So that's, even though it was scary in the moment and I was just angry and all this, like, it also brought that encouragement that, like, man, God has some great plans for this kid, you know? So then,
Honestly, I think this next one was about only within the next few weeks, really,
yeah,
because I remember this specific one, I was only about 8 weeks along.
yeah. And that's what I'm saying. So that first story, I know it was early on because I do remember it was before that one.
Yeah.
So this one, same thing. I was in the room, probably working on some music or whatever, and this time she runs in, like, freaking out even worse. Like, she was crying. And if you just want to say what
Yeah.
happened.
I just remember I was just crying and shaking, and it was happening for a little while off and on before that, and I was just trying to like kind of get it out of my head, like, oh no, it's okay, everything's fine, because
What?
I'm going to explain in a second, that I was having off and on cramping a lot throughout the day, and but it was slowly getting worse. But I was like, no, because I remember, as my body's changing with the pregnancy, I will experience some cramps, I'll experience it's just gonna be uncomfortable, But then it started progressively getting worse after you got home. I started feeling it in my back, and then I was feeling it, down below. And then after that, I was like, man, I don't feel good, and I was just feeling really weird. And then I went to the restroom, and when I did, I had spotting, and it was like a decent amount, and I was just like, oh, shoot. I was like, this is not happening. I was just in disbelief. I was so scared. I was just shaking. My heart was racing. And that's when I immediately went in the room to you, because I was pretty sure that I was losing him, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And then after I came in and told you,
We just rushed off because
I think I was just so freaked out and panicked. I immediately got like on the phone with the advice nurse.
no,
And
I'm pretty sure we just left, didn't we?
no, because
They told you to
they
come in.
told me to go in,
Oh, that's
because
probably okay.
I explained all my symptoms I was having, how long I was having them, and then and it was actually because I remembered going to the bathroom again, and there was more spotting. And I told the nurse that, and they're like, okay, yeah, you need to go in because it sounds like you are having a miscarriage. And this was like late, right?
Yeah, this was like at night.
Yeah, this was late at night. And so I'm just like freaking out. I'm crying, I'm shaking. And then we had to load up Abby and Miguel with us too.
Yeah, all I remember is we just grabbed the kids, we got in the car, and we just took off.
Yeah.
And
You can tell some of the story too
we
now.
texted a few friends. We're like, hey, please pray for us. There's issues with the pregnancy and this and that. And so we took off, and on the road, we're praying and stuff. Mainly me. Alyese is just kind of freaked out. I'm the one praying, and the kids are just in the back, and we're going. And when we get there, um, they didn't let us all go in. We're like, yeah, because I mean, they were gonna let all the kids go in. So um, she just was able to go in, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm just gonna wait in the car then. So while she was in there, it was just me, Abby, and Miguel in the car, and we're sitting there. They were kind of wanting to play a little bit, and Miguel was still pretty little, so he was playing. He didn't really know what was going on, but Abby, she kind of picked up. She's always been more aware of things, and I told her, I was like, look, um, there's some issues with the baby. I forgot exactly how I told her, but pretty much, like, I told her that it was like pretty serious, and I told her that we need to be praying, because the enemy wants to attack the baby, and we're not gonna allow that. Like, we got to stand and fight for him. And man, she went off. Like, she was praying like I'd never seen her pray before. Not that I haven't seen her pray, but I haven't seen her pray like this.
Hmm.
And she was like going in, dude. She was like that's how I know, that again, we talk about that God has plans for them. I know one of the big things that God has given her is that spirit of intercession, because man, let me tell you, she was praying just as hard as I was, and I'm like, dang, this kid is like little, and she's praying like this, and she's going in praying for her brother, covering him, telling the devil off about you cannot touch him, you cannot touch my mom, all these things, and she was just going off, and so we're both praying a lot, in the car, and eventually, like, the night just gets later and later, the kids just get more tired, and eventually we just all three of us fell asleep in the car, and then before I know it, my phone wakes me up, and it's Alyese calling me, and it
Well,
freaked. Well, I
okay.
know, and it freaked me out, cause I'm like, why is she calling me right now? Cause I was thinking if everything was okay, she would come back out. But the fact that she's still in there and she's calling me, it must mean something's wrong. So I freaked out, and so when I answered, and then she told me what happened, but then you can say what happened up until that point.
Yeah, so after I went in, I was in there by myself, and so they were asking me all the questions, doing all the tests, doing the exam and everything, and they were like, "Yeah, so your body is having this miscarriage. We're gonna still do tests. We're gonna keep you for observation. We're gonna take you in for an ultrasound. We have to confirm it, and everything." And so this entire time, obviously midnight or whatever time it was, it's really slow in the ER. So we were there for a few hours, and the whole entire time I was by myself. I was just sitting there. I was crying, and but all I remember is the entire night I just would not stop praying. Like I just couldn't stop. And it was just the same prayer over and over and over again, but it's just like I just kept praying. I just kept saying, like, I even remember, like, at one point, like, God, if this is really your will, which I know it's, I have a feeling it's not, because like you asked us, like you asked us for this, so. But if this is just going to happen, like, I trust in you and I put my faith in you, Lord, you're going to help me through this, you know. And I just kept saying, just please protect my baby, though, And I just kept playing, like, just please protect him. And so um, they did all the work. And then shortly after that, that's when they took me in for the ultrasound. And so I went in there. The lady, she could see that I'm freaked out, I'm panicked. And then I was like, is there any way you can let me see the screen? Can I just please see the screen? Like, I have to see it for myself. And she's like, I'm sorry, I can't. She's like, in circumstances like this, we're not allowed to let, people see them. And I was like, can I hear the sound the ultrasound makes, like whenever it's going over and all this stuff? She's like, no, I have to mute it too. She's like, there's no way I can let you hear or see anything. And I was just like, that just made me feel so much more like just helpless, because I was like, come on, like, I just wanted something, and she just kept telling me no. And I was like, is he there? Is my baby still there? And she's like, I'm sorry, I can't tell you anything. And I was just like, it just broke my heart, because I was like, come on, it was just me and her in the room. I was by myself, I was freaked out. And then it was so hard, after that, walking back to the lobby and just waiting again. And then I don't know, maybe like another 2 hours passed, and then a doctor came out that was my doctor for the night. And they're like, all right, so, and they sat right next to me, and they were like, all right, well, we did all the blood work, all the tests, we did the ultrasound, and we don't know how this happened, but your body was having a miscarriage.
No,
It is having a miscarriage. And somehow the miscarriage, and they were like going like visual, like they were using their hands and stuff. They're like, this is, your womb and everything. This is the miscarriage. The miscarriage went around your womb and it went around your baby, but your baby is still there, and your baby still has a heartbeat, and your baby is alive. They were just saying, they just kept repeating, like, I don't understand how this happened, like, it's like they were just so, like, as confused. And like, I remember them saying it again to me, and I was like, I know, it was God. And then the doctor just like looked at me and they're like, okay. And they're like, but yeah, we are discharging you now and you can go home, but just make sure you take it easy, get some rest. And then that's when I ended up calling you.
I remember that they had called it a threatened miscarriage.
Yeah, threatened miscarriage.
I don't know what that is. They're like, well, sometimes, whatever, dude. But anyway, yeah. So then she calls me, and she tells me that she goes, so I forgot what order you said it, but pretty much you were like, it was a miscarriage and this and that, but the baby's okay. He has a heartbeat. It's not affecting him. So something like, and when you were telling me that, I was on the phone and I'm like, what? Like, I really felt so in disbelief that God literally just answered our prayers in such a crazy way.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait a minute. Like, God literally just did this. Like, what?
Yeah.
And I remember I didn't really talk about it to like everybody. I didn't do that yet because I was still worried that, like, because they told you, like, it's still going to finish. Like, you're going to go home
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to finish. And they're like, so, you're still going to feel the symptoms. You're still going to see the bleeding and all this. And it's like, so I was like, what the heck? And I remember you were still like pretty like messed up about it because that was Saturday night, I believe, because we went to church the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like just super down and you were crying, and Jonathan came over and he prayed with us. And you know it took me a couple days, maybe I guess, until it was like done happening, that I was like, dude, this for sure happened now. Like,
Yeah.
so, and that's the part that was crazy to me, that if it had been a miscarriage and then somehow it was stopped, that would have already been a miracle in itself. But the fact that it continued, like, it finished, it went its whole thing. Like, you had the full miscarriage, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yet it didn't affect Sammy, and here he is 2 years later.
Yeah.
That was just so mind blowing. And I was like, dude, I cannot, like, I'm telling you, like, when you told me that, I was like, I cannot believe, like, I didn't know what to say. I was so in shock that God did this. So there was that story. And then the last one I want to touch on, we'll try to not make it super long. But this was now at like when he was born. This was now when he was born. We had the scheduled C-section. We went in, all that. And I don't know. I don't know if it was because of something they did or just because he was big, or really if it was just kind of like a random thing that happened. But and I don't remember if it was when he was in the womb or if it was when he was coming out. But he breathed in the fluids that were in there, and even some of like the black liquidy poop stuff that babies have, and just all that stuff. Like, he had breathed some of that in, and so they were trying to work on him, trying to make sure that he could breathe and all that. But he wasn't really, like, they were just noticing that, like, the way that his lungs were, like, or like his chest was kind of sinking in when he would breathe. They were like, yeah, we can't, it's not okay. Like, so they ended up taking him to the NICU, the baby, what is it, neonatal intensive care unit. Yeah, see, I know words. I know fancy things. Anyway, they took him in there, and that was where it was difficult for Alyese, because she couldn't be with him. She was recovering from the surgery, and I was going back and forth, trying to spend as much time with the baby, but also coming back with her. But, I was up there with him, and, it was just crazy seeing him in there with, like, the tubes and an IV. But even then, I just knew, like, man, this kid is strong, because he didn't, like, he just seemed like, he was just like, yeah, whatever. They had his arm in this little, like, thing that would keep his arm straight for the IV so he wouldn't, like, move it. And then they had, like, a little breathing tube in his nose, and then they had this little other tube in his mouth because of the breathing tube in his nose that was pushing air in. The little one in his mouth was to let any, like, extra air come out of his mouth, out of his belly. because like, babies don't know how to burp right or whatever, so they didn't want it to cause any kind of like trapped gas in his stomach. And it was just crazy seeing him in there like that, but he was like, he's just fighting his way through it though. It was just like, I remember one of the days that I went up there, the nurse was like, yeah, he's strong, he keeps pulling out the tubes out of his mouth and all this. So it's just kind of crazy, and like all that. And then I just knew he wasn't going to stay in there long. He was just like strong. And then little by little, they began to, remove things from him. We could start feeding him. His breathing came to normal and all of that. And I mean, now he's perfectly fine. He doesn't have any issues with his lungs. He can burp fine. He's good, Even like, I remember too, they did like, he had a little bit of that jaundice stuff. But again, that went away.
And it's also common in boys too.
Right. I mean, Miguel had it too.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking back to that time,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that was the experience. And did we talk about? We did talk about you with like how, yeah, we talked about it when we discussed like the different parts of the recoveries and how like this one, you were like the strongest in this one.
And it was also because like the motivation of him.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, this was your fastest recovery. This was the one where you were like, I could just see the growth in you as a mom, as a woman, that you just like. Whereas when you were younger with Abby, it was just like you couldn't handle things. But by the time that you had Sammy, you were just like, you had this like, because of your love for the kids and you're concerned about Sammy, like, it just gave you a level of strength that you didn't have before, or at least you didn't know you had.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I remember from your recovery, because you're like, no, I'm good. Like, but even then, like, that also pushed it to be a faster recovery, because we were at church, like
2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks after the surgery, I was at church.
But yeah, so those are the stories of Sammy's pregnancy and delivery, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. It's just crazy how all the kids had different things that happened, but we're grateful that the Lord did what he did. We're grateful, grateful for God, for everything he does,
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see what stories come out of this little baby,
Baby Jeremiah.
Because I feel like this pregnancy has been like, it got difficult quick for you.
Yes, it did.
So of course we're still in prayer, and we have faith that God's gonna take care of everything again, like he does.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think we're gonna call it there. And yeah. Is there anything you want to say before I close it off?
I just want to say thank you again to everybody who has been listening and who will like continue to listen. And I kind of hope that this pregnancy story will touch somebody and will help somebody through theirs. That just trust in God and fully, and he knows what he's doing in your life, even though at times we don't understand it. What he's doing, what his plan is. You just have to fully surrender and you have to fully trust in him, because he has a reason for everything, for every good and bad times, the joyfulness, the hurts, everything. He has a purpose for it. He has a reasoning for it all, because in the end, at the end of whatever season you may be going through, for anybody, man or woman, it's going to come out. At the end of your season, you're going to come out stronger. And it's going to make you a stronger person.
If you let God do what he's doing.
Yeah, if you let God do what he is doing and what he is trying to do and trying to mold you and shape you into and change the old you, just surrender and let him do it. And he will do it, and there will be something amazing coming out of it, you know?
It reminds me of the preaching from yesterday,
Yeah.
because that's what he was saying, how, like, a lot of times the pain that we go through, you know, God has the victory on the other side for us, and then we become that support and that testimony and that help for the next person who's going through it.
Yeah.
Because now you know exactly how to help that next person,
Mm-hmm.
So even the hardships that we go through is for a reason, A lot of times we think about things in a personal ways, like, oh, my life is about me. But no, a lot of times it's not. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times the things you go through, it's equipping you and helping you to then be able to help others in that same situation because you know what it's like,
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it reminded me of.
Yeah. But again, I just want to say thank you to everybody, and, definitely give this a share with anybody. Hopefully it helps somebody. But yeah, I just really greatly appreciate every single one of you guys.
Me too. All right, we'll catch you guys on the next one.
See you guys.